Joining the dispatch today is Call of Duty professional player for the Los Angeles OpTic, five-time champion. Today, we've got Kenny. Kenny, how are we doing today?
I'm doing pretty good.
Doing pretty good. A little bit
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah, it's definitely I stayed up all night playing and woke up pretty late, but I'm feeling okay.
That's good. By the way, how has MW been? Has the team got a chance to scrimmage at all?
Yeah, we skimmed like 2 times. It's definitely new, I would say. Just because of how big the maps are. And I mean, we're playing pretty well, like like shooting wise. We just need to learn the game more and the spawns because there's like multiple different spawns on different hills. It's kind of confusing, but I mean, it's the like second week of the game, so.
Now, what's your opinion on Modern Warfare as a game? Obviously, it's received a lot of negative feedback, but do you think it has potential to be a good game if maybe the certain adjustments are made?
I think from the past, maybe I would say even 4 CODs, um, most recent CODs, I think it has the most potential to be like a top COD. I don't like the map designs, I will say that. I think Call of Duty's main thing has always been their smaller maps like Nuketown, Rust, like those are like the main maps you think of when you think of Call of Duty. So, I'm not really a fan of the big maps. But I think that like gunplay, everything like the mechanics, I think are perfect for the game. I just think that there's a little tweaks for comp that could make it like literally into the perfect game. We'll see if those come, but I think that it definitely has the most potential to be one of the top CODs from like the most recent CODs.
Now, at this point in the game, what are teams doing in terms of scrimmages or even in online tournaments? Is it simply just learning callouts, just kind of learning the game? How is that process kind of at the start of a title?
It's more of learning the spawns. I feel like I'm sorry. I feel like the spawn manipulation in like the past 3 CODs have been different. Like World War 2, you could block spawns by yourself. Black Ops 4, you needed to anchor like stuff like that. This COD is kind of weird because there's like 2 spawns that you need to block, but you can't do both unless you're like absolutely destroying the team. So it's kind of like hardpoint right now is set on spawn killing actually, which is weird. You've never heard of a hardpoint be like, oh, we need to be spawn killing them. But to hold down a like certain hills, you need to be spawn killing the team, which is pretty hard to do because people actually shoot back when you're playing against pro teams. But I think that's the meta right now, and we don't know if it's gonna change or not. But right now, that's basically it. Just like learning the spots to make them spawn into a certain spot and spawn kill them.
Now, from what you've experienced up to this point, and I'm kind of on the topic of metas and stuff like that. What are the roles, kind of looking like in Modern Warfare? Now, I know it's early, but just in general, what are kind of the roles that you guys have been rolling with up to this point?
Right now it's depending on the maps because some maps are kind of smaller than others, and the guns like the MP7 like is a laser, so you can shoot against ARs cross map. But right now our team on certain maps we ran 3 M4s, so 3 ARs and then 2 subs, me and TJ. But there are also are some maps where we tried to run 4 subs with Dashi as a sub too. But obviously the meta like changes as it goes. But right now it just depends on the map. Like there's certain small maps like Gunrunner and Hackney where 2 or 3 ARs is kind of like not useless because they kill so fast. Like the time kills so fast, but the aggressiveness you can have on the map with 4 subs or 3 subs is pretty big on those maps.
Now, what's your thought on attachments? Because I've heard a lot of people be kind of for them, be against them. People have talked about it's far too in depth. I know from maybe a player's point of view, it could be, beneficial in certain capacities. But what's kind of your thought on the amount of customization that you have for certain weapons?
To be honest, I love it. I like the like all the attachments and stuff like that. I kind of I how I look at it though, I don't think it's balanced because there's certain attachments that give you negative stats, and there's not an attachment that gives you the opposite positive stats. So it's kind of like there's some attachment that will give you like less movement speed and less aim down sight speed. And then there will be one that just gives you movement, like give you aim down sight speed, but not movement speed. And it's kind of like it's not a balance, but I like it. One thing I don't like is that you can change your classes mid-game. I think that with all the attachments in the game, that kind of like negative impacts like the comp scene because you can literally add a sniper scope onto an AR mid-map. So it's kind of like iffy because I feel like there's gonna be a lot of players that there's a lot of weird players that do weird stuff like Clayster that runs weird guns, stuff like that. And I feel like she's gonna bring out a meta where like he just runs a M4 or like a AR with a sniper scope on it, and he just beam you across the map. And I feel like that's gonna be a cool thing to see from a spectator's point of view, but not to play against, especially when like you're mid map and you're like, oh, they don't have a sniper on their team, but any of them could be a sniper at any time because they can just switch their class mid map. And I feel like that makes the attachments thing kind of like, I guess, like fugazi, I guess.
Sure. Now let's talk about your team a little bit more, right? Because I think, from not just my opinion, but kind of the entire community, it deems your roster on paper as by far one of the best. But I want to hear kind of about your opinion or your thoughts on the younger guys that you're now paired with. Obviously yourself, Dashy, TJ, all three of you guys are 20 years old. Obviously you've never played with them before, you played against them, but what's it like to be paired alongside these two guys?
Um, I mean, we've been teaming for about a month, and we only played for like 2 weeks. But I mean, I've always wanted to team with TJ ever since World War II. Well, actually before um World War II. But I think that with Dashy's year last year, he definitely came up on my list as one of the players I wanted to play with. So when the option came up, because me and Austin were sticking after BO4 that we could play with TJ and Dashy, it was like that might have been the easiest choice I could have made. But teaming with them so far, I mean, they their talent is just unmatched. To be honest, I feel like me and TJ as subs, it's like a duo I've always wanted. Um, Dashy, I mean, the guy shoots pretty straight. So for like teammate wise, like how they work with teams and how they deal with stuff, we haven't gotten to the point where we've had like issues or anything because we haven't been really like scrimming that much because of we don't know if things are gonna switch. But in terms of skill and talent, everything, they have it all.
Now, you're coming from 100 Thieves, right? You spent a season over there where you saw two championships, right? You won those back to back. One thing that I thought was incredible about last year was your team's ability to, deal with the early issues, push through it because everyone knew the talent that you had on this roster. It was just a matter of, getting to the point where you could reach, that level of success. This team has a decent amount of pieces, from that 100 Thieves group, obviously yourself, Slasher, and Mud Dog. With all the stacked rosters this year, of course, your team included in that, do you think your roster has an advantage because of what you guys went through last season?
Um, Definitely last season was like it was like a learning experience for me for sure. I think that going into this year, if we do have the same issues, it'll be easier to deal with because we actually found out our real issues like after we made the roster change and everything. Um, I don't think it's like an advantage thing. I think that it's more of like us being ahead and allowing what happened last year not to happen this year. Um, I think that's more of the case. Now I have an advantage where like we have it happen and then like can fix it. Just more of like like I said, not allowing it to happen, like getting the problem like fixed before it even like becomes a thing.
More of an awareness, I guess, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay. Now, I know you talked a little bit about your offseason, yourself and Slash are kind of the one to play alongside each other, but were there a few organizations that you maybe had in mind, or why really was OpTic the move for you?
I was actually, I mean, I guess I can say this now. I was actually set on going to New York. Me and Austin wanted to play with Lamar. Actually, like I wanted to play actually so bad. Um, and then Mud Dog hit us up and was like, "Yo, like, if y'all come to LA, I'll be the GM." And I was like, that was just a no hezzy. I wanted to work with Mud Dog, and he's become like one of my best friends. So I think that him being the GM was like a big reason of us joining Optic, to be honest.
Now, it's no secret, that the ownership of Optic Gaming has changed and the way the general audience has kind of taken it. But what's the feeling amongst the roster knowing that there will be, some negative eyeballs and feelings toward this particular team? Is that something you think that the roster is prepared for with that negative audience that could exist?
Yeah, I think that I mean with the roast and everything we got last year on 100T with with me and Austin, I think we easily deal with that. I think none of that stuff like out of game like should affect any players in game. Um, but I'm not gonna lie, I kind of like being the villain, so it's kind of fun because when you beat people, it just makes winning way better. Obviously, I don't do it on purpose. I just kind of am the villain, but I don't know. I don't know how it deals, like how it affects like my other teammates like Cap and Dashy and Tej because I've this is my first time ever teaming with them. But I know me and Austin and my dog deal with it very well. We make it into like a whole series. Like we win. It's kind of like our thing now. But I don't think the feedback for how the optics ran now. I think that people misunderstood the whole situation. But I mean, like I said, we're just gonna keep playing COD like we normally do, and hopefully bring home chips and bring some fans back. But we'll see.
Sure. Now, are there any teams that you've currently got on your radar that you think could make for solid competition for you guys this season?
I think everybody's looking at Dallas right now, just because they and I mean they took it. I don't know if Clay took it as a roast, but everybody was saying how like they grinded the most. It wasn't really that. It was that the fact that they got the game early and they grinded the most, which you got to respect. I mean, nobody's roasting them for it. But they're definitely like one. I mean, they're probably the best team in the game right now. Like because they know the game so well. There's like I played them on the map the other day where like offense beats the defense to the bomb, and they're still somehow winning defenses. And I'm like, I was kind of impressed because I'm like, there's no way I win any of these defenses. I don't know how they do it, but I mean they're ahead of the meta. Hopefully they stay ahead of the meta. They don't, then teams catch up. But I do think if there's an update that changes the whole game, then that kind of like resets everything, and now it's a whole brand new game and we'll see how they do then. But for as of right now, Dallas is like the team on everybody's radar.
Now, I want to ask you, do you think that, the LA Optic will have a kind of a given rivalry versus the Chicago Huntsmen, obviously because of the, past experiences with organization to organization? And if so, how do you feel like you guys would match up versus that particular team?
Um, I don't think that the players like us versus them would make it that. I think the more of the fan bases, but I think we match up perfectly versus them. I think head to head, each player is like even, but um I don't know. I don't this meta in this game is just so weird because like it's more of like a campy meta, and we don't know how the game's gonna like actually play out. But I think that in a Call of Duty like general standpoint, I think we match up pretty well versus them. It's kind of even. I don't know. It just comes down to who shows up on that day, which is basically COD. Like it's all about who shows up on a certain day.
Now, I know you saw this conversation on Twitter, but in your eyes, who has had the greatest rookie season in Call of Duty Esports history?
I think Mirix is just it's. I mean, Simp did pretty well. I mean, I think that what he did was pretty hard. I mean, I'm not gonna be egotistical here, but even I couldn't do it in my best game, even though I wasn't a rookie. But I mean, he won playoffs, which is what I did. He won champs, which was pretty hard. I mean, I got second. But Mirix, like his first event he ever been to, he won. He won 3 chips. I'm pretty sure 3 back to back chips. He won
It's four.
champs.
Four
Four.
chips.
He won
Yeah.
4. See, exactly. So like he won champs and won 4 chips. Simp won champs and won 2. I mean, and before that, like Simp was already going to events like as an AM. Um, Mirix, his first MLG event, he won, which is kind of like a hard thing to do, obviously. But I mean, I guess you can say the same thing for Simp, but 4 versus 2, and he won champs too. It's like you have to argue for the more chips, to be honest. And obviously, one thing I will say though, the comp has gotten harder, so it is harder to win nowadays. But I mean, if we're just going based off like championships and everything, then it's definitely mirror for me.
Okay. I say it's an interesting discussion because there have been a lot of people who have said, "Oh, it's this person," no questions asked, and then you have someone instantly reply and say, "Well, actually, if you kind of look at the details, I think it's an interesting conversation." But I want to ask you really quick, where do you think that you rank up there? Because I feel as if you deserve to be in that conversation in terms of best rookie season. I know people could argue Advanced Warfare, but if we're talking solely World War II, what was it, 3 championships? Obviously, you enter into the champs grand final, MVP of the season. Took a lot of, or rather, took a team that maybe not a whole lot of people had the most faith in to championship wins. Where do you think that you rank up there in terms of that conversation?
Um, if we're saying I'm a rookie in World War II, I think that Mir still won for me. He's way ahead of me. I don't know how I would rank me in Simp because I did win playoffs. He won playoffs. He won champs. I got second, but I did win an extra championship over him. So it's kind of weird on how you base that. I feel like it just comes down to uh, because like he played like the last 3 or 4 events. I played a whole year, whole span of a year. So people kind of were like, "Oh, like Kenny won the first 2 chips and then where was garbage for like 3 or 4 months and then came back and won," which was not the case at all. But um, I think it just comes down to who, like, what do you weigh more, like championships or like their stats? Like, it just depends on what you weigh more and what's like the topic of rookie of the year. Because I won rookie of the year, esports rookie of the year because of my championships. I won 3 championships and got second at the biggest event. That's the only reason I won it. I didn't. My stats actually, I wasn't even like the best sub stats wise in World War II, and but people just remember me from like all the plays I made and stuff like that. So if you're basing it off like how like watching the games, like people nowadays would be like, yeah, Sim's the best because he had like a 1.4 event and would not have even watched that event and seen like Simp even play, but it's just based off his stats. Like people remember the plays I made and stuff like that. So like I said, it just depends on like how you want to base it because we're basing it off stats. Like Simp blows me out the water because his stats at events were insane. But if you're basing it off championships, then I feel like I should be ahead. And I mean, like I said, it just depends on how you like generalize it.
Sure, I gotta say, I definitely won't forget the Gibraltar hard point. That's for sure. That's definitely one for me in my eye. If you talk
Yeah.
about plays like of all time, that's one that I definitely kind of have in terms of World War II. Just a few quick questions. Obviously, who do you think is, or rather, for you, in your opinion, who's the best teammate that you've ever had?
Are we talking about who I had the most fun with, or like as a teammate in Call of Duty?
We'll say teammate in Call of Duty.
I think that it's a tie between Austin and Lamar accuracy, because last year when we first had our 100T team, me and Austin actually argued so much. Which people that don't know Austin, it's Slasher. We argued every day, like every day, and then as the game went on and my ego dropped because I had to humble myself. I won't lie. Like last year I came into the game, well, Black Ops 4 came into the game like because I was considered the best player, and ego going through the roof, and I wasn't really listening, but definitely humbled myself after being so bad at the game in the beginning, and then started listening to Austin and everything. Like all the criticism he gives during game is actually like it's really good points. And like I said, with accuracy, it was the same thing. Like in World War II, he taught me so much that it was insane. How fast I learned and how fast those two learn the games. I feel like it's either between those two. I don't know how I could like split them apart, but they've done the same thing for me both years.
Now, what's your favorite tournament that you've ever been to?
Ooh, let me think. Let's see. Favorite tournament? It has to be champs. Just champs. Just because the environment in champs is just crazy. Like there's like people will argue that the London like crowd was better than champs, but getting to that grand final with champs, like that feeling you get is just crazy.
Which year are we
It's
talking about? Are we talking about World War II or
both,
Black Ops 4? Both of
both.
them? Okay.
I mean, I was in grand finals of
Right. I
both,
was gonna
so
say, right.
not to be that guy, but I was in grand finals of both, and even at both champs, I was like you can feel the whole like stage just shaking, and it's like it's the most like exhilarating feeling ever. But I would say champs is like the best of. I mean, let's see which one was. I think World War II champs was definitely better. If we're going by just one event, I think World War II champs was definitely more hype, and yeah, like the fans were just more crazy at that one.
Sure. And lastly, what's one thing you would change about Modern Warfare?
Um, one thing I would change, I would just have to go with maps. I mean, if I obviously that's like a big thing, can just change the map. So I would um, let's see. Yeah, I don't know. There's like I said, the game's actually so good. It's so good. It's just the maps that is like the maps are the main reason like they're getting this negative like feedback. That's it, because it benefits to people that camp and like hide and stuff like that. So it's kind of like that's never been a COD thing. That's more of like a Battlefield thing where like bigger maps, people camp snipe. Um, but I feel like COD's been known as like the run and gun game, and that's not really this game. So I feel like if I could change anything, it would definitely be the maps.
Okay. Well, Kenny, we wish you the best this season, and we thank you a ton
Thank
for
you.
joining us today.
No problem.
Absolutely. Well, that's Kenny, professional player for the Los Angeles OpTic.